Have you ever noticed how some people change the entire atmosphere around them without shouting, begging, or making demands? They simply withdraw. No drama, no explanation, just quiet distance. And suddenly the entire energy shifts. People begin to chase, to question, to feel unsettled. That shift, we've been trained to ignore it, but that's the subtle power of strategic silence. Now imagine if you did the same. Imagine if you stopped reacting instantly, if you traded escalation for stillness, if you chose silence instead of emotional impulse. What do you believe would happen? More importantly, what do you believe would be revealed? That's where your power lives, not in how loudly you express yourself, but in when and where you decide to withhold your energy. Because here's the truth. When you are always emotionally, psychologically, and physically available, you become easy to manipulate. You become a tool in other people's stories, not the author of your own. People don't rely on your presence. They rely on your predictability. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." Sit with that. When your silence makes someone uncomfortable, when your distance stings more than your words ever could, you've revealed something powerful. Their dependence on the role you always played. And when you are no longer available to fulfill that role, their mask slips too. You keep giving your time, your words, your emotional energy to people who would leave you empty. You do it to keep the peace. You do it to avoid confrontation. You do it because the world raised you to believe his behavior is noble. But with every yes that you force, with every emotion you hand out like it's infinite, you empty yourself. And at the end of every people-pleasing day, what's left for you? Frustration, emotional fatigue, a hollow ache inside your chest that you can't quite explain. But I'll tell you why that exists. Because you are far too available to those who don't deserve even a minute of your inner world. And the more pieces of yourself you give away, the less of yourself remains. This message isn't about turning cold. It's about waking up. It's about reclaiming your energy and becoming unshakably rooted in your own presence. Jung called it individuation, becoming your authentic, fully integrated self. And the process starts when you stop allowing others to extract value from your emotional availability. Silence is often stronger than righteous anger. A quiet retreat from drama is more powerful than 1,000 perfectly crafted responses. But you have to ask yourself honestly, how long are you willing to be controlled by the emotions of others? How long will you allow yourself to be yanked like a puppet every time someone pokes a wound you've never healed? Maybe, just maybe, it's time to cut those strings, to reclaim your narrative, to become a mystery, not a mirror. Because when you are always accessible, always explaining, always reacting, always emotionally involved, you are not connecting, you're performing. You've been taught that your worth is directly tied to how much you give, and not just material things, but your time, your empathy, your energy. The world shaped you into a responder. Someone who must answer every call, justify every absence, prove your intention even when your silence should have been enough. But here's the truth that no one taught you growing up. Excessive accessibility is not kindness. It is self-abandonment, disguised as duty. When you're emotionally available to everyone, you become spiritually absent from yourself. This idea of availability in all moments, emotionally, mentally, digitally, is suffocating. You're picking up calls you didn't want to answer, responding to texts that drain you, saying yes when you're screaming no in your heart, and you justify it every time. You say, "I don't want to be rude, I don't want to let them down. I just want to keep the peace." But whose peace? Not yours. In fact, you are the one losing sleep, feeling empty after every interaction, ruminating quietly while trying to piece yourself back together. What you think is keeping connections alive is really killing your authenticity. You are slowly, repeatedly choosing external harmony over internal truth, and the cost is not invisible. It is written all over you in your exhaustion, your declining self-worth, your inability to sit in silence without guilt. Carl Jung described what we project for others. Smiling faces, accommodating attitudes, explanation after explanation, as the persona, the mask. And the more you live through that mask, the further you get from who you really are. You say it's okay when you want to scream. You make conversation when you'd rather be in solitude. You justify why you walked away instead of simply walking. But understand this: the more present you are in everyone else's life, the less visible you become in your own. You're disappearing in plain sight, not absent physically, but absent emotionally, because your energy is being scattered everywhere but back into your own soul. People mistake that for strength, but make no mistake. Being emotionally accessible to everyone is a soft form of self-erasure. It is rooted in shame and fear of being rejected, fear of being misunderstood, and the irrational belief that you are only lovable if you are useful. But love based on usefulness isn't love, it's transaction. And if your presence is only appreciated when it meets someone's need, then it was never cherished in the first place. You don't need to be readily available to prove you're a good person. In fact, your worth may finally be recognized when you stop showing up everywhere uninvited. Because here's the most paradoxical truth of all: the less available you are, the more valuable you become. What is constantly offered becomes emotionally invisible. But what is scarce, what is sovereign, what is mysterious, that commands respect without asking for it. Let that sink in. You're not disconnected, you're misdirected. The problem isn't your emotional capacity, it's where you've been pouring it. Carl Jung believed the psyche was an energy system, and every time you react unnecessarily, every toxic conversation, every over-explaining sentence, every emotional spiral, you are leaking that energy. Psychic energy is sacred, and the less you manage it, the more others use it to manage you. Every time you argue when silence would have ended everything, you hemorrhage your strength. Every push to clarify what didn't need explanation, every urge to respond instantly, this is your spirit fracturing for the comfort of others. Jung said a healthy psyche is one that learns how to guard energy within its system. That doesn't mean you become callous or emotionally numb. It means you become selective, powerful, intrinsically controlled. You know when to engage and when to step back. True inner power isn't about dominating others. It's about dominating yourself. When you master your reactions, you stop being someone people can manipulate. Every unresolved conversation you can't stop thinking about, that's energy being consumed. Every time you wonder, why did they say that? Why did they treat me that way? You are fueling ghosts that should have died years ago. You are giving life to dynamics that would end the moment you stopped responding. That's what silence does. It reveals whether there's anything left when your emotional labor ends. If silence breaks the relationship, it was already broken. When you're centered in your energy, you walk into any room and command attention without words. But when your energy is scattered, you vanish, exhausted, reactive, easy to shake. Here's what the manipulators hope you never realize. They don't need to scream to control you. They just need to know which of your emotional buttons are unguarded. If they know you're always available for guilt, they will gift you shame. If they know you'll always reply, they'll ignore boundaries. Their control isn't loud. It's quiet. It's strategic. Jung called this projection, the way others assign their internal darkness to unsuspecting scapegoats. And the more emotionally open you are, the more room they have to project onto you. Because you're not a person to them, you're a function. They reach out when they're in crisis. They praise you as long as you're convenient. It only continues because you keep playing the role. But when the script changes, when you say no, stop responding, or become emotionally distant, everything they built falls apart. You were the emotional mirror, and now the reflection is gone. When you remove yourself from the cycle, when you stop defending yourself, stop proving your worth, stop reacting, you're no longer predictable. You're no longer a resource. You become a boundary. And that kind of change doesn't just disrupt people's expectations, it exposes their underlying motives. Your unavailability forces others to meet themselves, and most people are terrified of their own emptiness. That's why your silence feels like an attack to them, It isn't. The pain they feel is internal. Your silence simply revealed what was already broken. Because the truth is, silence isn't avoidance when it comes from awareness. It's evolution. And so here is the paradox. Silence disturbs those who relied on your weakness. It enrages those who thrived on your reactions. It makes you look arrogant to those who always expected emotional servitude. When you begin to say, "Not today," I don't owe you that answer. I choose not to engage right now. You gain ground. Not just external, but internal. Jung called individuation the sacred process of becoming whole, and this always involves a period of pulling back from the collective. Not in bitterness, not in emotional isolation, but in focused solitude. Strategic unavailability is not about being cold, it's about stopping the bleeding. It's standing guard at your energetic borders. Not everyone gets in, not everyone gets access, and the few that do, they now recognize they're with someone who knows their worth, who protects their own peace like it's sacred currency. At first, this change will sting, not just for them, but for you too. You'll feel guilt. You'll second-guess the silence. You'll wonder whether you're being harsh. That's natural. You've spent a lifetime being conditioned to be soft so others didn't have to harden up. But softness without boundaries is a trap. Staying accessible because you fear rejection doesn't earn love. It only postpones self-destruction. So yes, you will lose people. You will be misunderstood. You may be called selfish by those who only ever loved your availability, not your authenticity. But you will reclaim something greater, your sense of self, your wholeness, your peace. The strongest people are not the ones surrounded by noise. They're the ones who can sit in their own quiet without fear. Strategic unavailability births strength. It reforms clarity, and it reconnects you with a version of yourself that no longer needs to perform to be understood. Some relationships will dissolve, but they were never rooted in acceptance, only utility. And now you're becoming someone rare, someone who no longer begs to be known, someone who doesn't explain their peace, someone who doesn't panic in solitude. You are becoming whole, and from this silence, you are reborn. If you've made it this far, I want to know who truly understood the message. Leave the phrase "I choose my peace" in the comments, and let's see how many of you really grasp what it means to move with strategy. If this video made you question something, if it made you see things from a different angle, like and subscribe because this is just the beginning. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, those who do not protect their peace will always mistake exhaustion for connection.